She's running. The words cut through the rain before anyone saw the girl. Little Emma Cunningham's sneakers slapped against wet pavement, each step harder than the last, her pink backpack bouncing so hard against her shoulders, it looked like it might knock her down. She was 8 years old, small for her age, with pale brown hair plastered against her cheeks and eyes that had already learned what fear looked like. Behind her, a navy blue pickup truck rolled slow along the curb. Not fast enough to look aggressive, not slow enough to look innocent. Just patient, like it had all the time in the world. The rain came down steady that September morning in Riverside, Oregon, the kind of rain that made everything look darker than it should. Street signs blurred, windows fogged. The whole town felt muffled, like someone had wrapped it in wool and turned the volume down on everything except the sound of water hitting pavement and one little girl trying to run faster than her legs would carry her. Emma had left Riverside Elementary 20 minutes ago. School let out early because a pipe burst near the cafeteria, flooding the hallway with water that smelled like rust and old pennies. The principal made an announcement over the intercom at 11:30, told all the kids to call their parents, wait by the front office for pickup. But Emma's mom worked the morning shift at Riverside Laundromat 6 blocks away, and her phone stayed in her locker during work hours. Emma knew the road home. She had walked it with her mom a dozen times. 6 blocks, turn left at the flower shop, cross at the light, past the pharmacy. She could do it. She should have waited. The morning started normal, ordinary. The kind of morning that folds into memory without leaving a mark unless something happens to make you remember it forever. 6:30 a.m. The Cunningham apartment smelled like toast and instant coffee. Sarah Cunningham stood at the kitchen counter in her blue work uniform, hair pulled back tight, spreading peanut butter on bread while Emma sat at the small table by the window. The apartment was not much. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, a radiator that clanked like someone hitting pipes with a wrench. But it was theirs. Sarah worked hard to keep it that way. "What's our family password this month?" Sarah asked without looking up from the sandwich. Emma took a bite of cereal milk dripping from her spoon. "Bluebird. And if someone says I sent them to pick you up, I ask for the password. And if they don't know it?" Emma set her spoon down, looking at her mom with those serious brown eyes that made her seem older than 8. "Even if they say you sent them, I run to safe adults." Sarah turned around, leaning against the counter. She looked tired. She always looked tired. Single mother, 2 jobs, bills that came faster than paychecks. But when she looked at Emma, something in her face softened. "That's my smart girl." They had been practicing this for 3 years. Ever since Emma started walking to school by herself. Every month, a new password. Bluebird, starlight, copper, river. Simple words Emma could remember. Words a stranger would not guess. Sarah read about it in a parenting magazine at the laundromat, an article about keeping kids safe in a world that did not always care about safety. She cut the article out, taped it to the fridge, started drilling Emma the next day. "Why do we have a password, Mama?" Emma asked once back when she was 5, and still thought monsters only lived under beds. "Because some people try to trick kids," Sarah said, "and I need you to be smarter than the trick." Emma never forgot. Sarah kissed the top of Emma's head before she left for work. "Love you, baby. See you at 4. "Love you, Mama." The door closed. Emma finished her cereal alone, rinsed the bowl, put it in the sink. She brushed her teeth, packed her backpack, checked the window. The sky looked heavy gray clouds stacked like old blankets. It would rain before lunch. At Brennan's Auto Repair, Jack Brennan unlocked the bay doors at 6 a.m. sharp. He always opened early, not because he had to, because sitting at home alone gave him too much time to think, and thinking led places Jack did not like to go. The garage smelled like motor oil and old coffee metal and grease and something burnt from a weld job 2 days ago. Tools hung on pegboards organized by size, every wrench in its place. Jack kept the shop clean. Order mattered. Control mattered. The world outside could be chaos, but inside these walls, everything had a spot. Jack was 46 years old, built like someone who worked with his hands for 30 years and did not believe in gyms. Broad shoulders, thick arms, a scar, cutting through his right eyebrow from a bar fight he barely remembered. Gray threaded through his beard now more every year, and his knuckles carried the kind of scars that came from engines that bit back. He wore black jeans, steel-toed boots, and a leather vest with patches that told a story most people in Riverside did not want to read. Hell's Angels. Not the kind of thing that made neighbors smile and wave. Not the kind of thing that got you invited to church potlucks or PTA meetings. But Jack earned that patch the hard way, and he wore it without apology. Tucker Morrison showed up 10 minutes later carrying 2 cups of gas station coffee. Tucker was 52 shorter than Jack, but twice as loud with a gray beard down to his chest and a nickname he earned 20 years ago in a fight nobody liked to talk about. Bulldog. It fit. Morning iron, Tucker said, using the road name Jack carried longer than his real one. He set 1 coffee on the workbench. Rain's coming. Jack nodded, pulling a cigarette from his pocket, lighting it with a silver Zippo that clicked loud in the quiet shop. He did not smoke much anymore. Just mornings, just when the past crept too close. Wyatt Stone arrived third, parking his bike outside and shaking rain from his jacket. Wyatt was 48, lean and quiet, with pale blue eyes that saw more than he said. He had done time once 10 years back for something he would not talk about. But he kept his nose clean, now worked construction, showed up at the garage on weekends to help Jack with overflow jobs. The three of them stood under the awning drinking bad coffee, watching the rain start to fall. They did not talk much. Men like them did not need to fill silence with words. They just stood there, leather and steel and old mistakes, waiting for the day to start. Jack stared at the street, watching water pool in the cracks of the asphalt. 18 years ago, he stood in a different garage in a different town, and his sister Grace told him something that mattered. She was 22 then, just out of college, working her first real job at a bookstore in Portland. She came home one weekend, sat at their mother's kitchen table and said it quiet, like she was afraid of being too loud. "Jack, there's a guy. He keeps showing up where I am." Jack was 28, full of himself, full of certainty that came from being young and stupid. "It's a small town, Gracie. People run into each other." "No," Grace said. "It's not like that. He's always there. Coffee shop, grocery store, outside my apartment." Jack shrugged, drinking a beer, not really listening. "Maybe he likes you." Grace's face closed up. She did not say anything else. Just nodded, picked up her keys, drove back to Portland. 2 weeks later, the man followed her home from work, waited until she was alone in the parking garage, cornered her by her car. Grace screamed. A security guard heard. The man ran. Grace moved to Seattle the next month and did not come back for 3 years. Jack never forgave himself for that shrug, for that beer, for not listening when listening mattered. He crushed the cigarette under his boot, watching the rain fall harder. Tucker looked at him but did not ask. Some things did not need asking. Across town, Marcus Dalton parked his navy blue pickup outside Riverside Laundromat at 7:15 a.m. He sat behind the wheel engine, running wipers sweeping slow across the windshield. He was 42 years old, clean cut, the kind of man who looked like he paid his taxes on time and remembered birthdays. Brown hair trimmed neat, work jacket tan and spotless, boots without scuff marks. He looked like someone you would trust to hold your spot in line or give you directions if you were lost. That was the point. Marcus watched through the glass as Sarah Cunningham folded towels at the long counter. She moved efficient, practiced stacking each towel in perfect squares. She had been working at the laundromat for 6 years, knew every machine by the sound it made, could tell when a dryer was about to quit, just by the way it rattled. She was 34 years old, tired in the way single mothers get tired, but she kept her head up. She had to. Marcus got out of the truck, rain tapping light against his shoulders. He pushed open the laundromat door, bell chiming above his head. Sarah looked up, and for just a second, something crossed her face. Not quite fear, not quite recognition, just a flicker of something that said she noticed. "Morning," Marcus said, smiling like they were old friends. "Morning," Sarah replied, flat, polite, the voice you use when you do not want to talk but do not want to be rude. "I was wondering if you do dry cleaning here," Marcus said, stepping closer to the counter. "No, just wash and fold. Dry cleaner's 2 blocks down on Spruce." Marcus nodded, still smiling. "Thanks. Hey, you work here a lot, right? I think I've seen you a few times." Sarah folded another towel, not looking at him. "I work mornings Monday through Friday." "That's great. Steady work. Must be nice." Marcus leaned against the counter, casual, like they were just two people passing time. "You live around here?" Sarah's hand stopped moving. She looked at him, then really looked, and something in her gut twisted. "I should get back to work." "Oh, sure. Didn't mean to bother you." Marcus stepped back, hands up, apologetic, just making conversation. He left. The door chimed. Sarah watched through the window as he got back in his truck, sat there for a minute, then pulled away slow. She exhaled, told herself it was nothing. Just a guy asking a question. Just small-town friendliness. But her hands were shaking when she picked up the next towel. At 11:45, the bell rang early at Riverside Elementary. Kids poured out of classrooms, chattering, excited about unexpected freedom. Emma stood by the front office with her backpack, waiting like she was supposed to. Principal Margaret Sutherland made calls one after another, tracking down parents at work, at home, wherever they were. Emma's mom did not answer. Principal Sutherland left a message, tried again, left another. Emma waited 15 minutes, then 20. The office smelled like old carpet and copy machine ink. Other kids got picked up one by one. Moms in minivans, dads in work trucks, grandparents who moved slow but steady. Emma watched them go. She knew the way home. 6 blocks. She had walked it before. She was 8, not a baby. She could do it. She did not tell anyone she was leaving. She just walked out the front door into the rain and started the 6 blocks home. The first block felt fine, normal. The rain was light, more mist than storm, and Emma kept her head down, backpack straps tight on her shoulders. She passed the school fence, turned left at the flower shop. The flower shop was closed, windows dark, but that was okay. Everything was okay. The second block, she noticed the truck. Navy blue, big, rolling slow behind her, keeping pace like it was tied to her with invisible string. Emma looked back, once saw the windshield wipers going back and forth like patient hands. She could not see the driver's face through the rain-streaked glass. She kept walking. The third block she crossed at the light, even though no cars were coming. She pressed the button, waited for the signal, crossed when it told her to. Good girl. Follow the rules. Mama always said, follow the rules. The truck turned, followed her across. Emma's stomach dropped. She tried to tell herself it was nothing. People drove the same streets. People went the same direction. It did not mean anything. But her hands started to sweat inside her jacket pockets. The fourth block, she changed direction. Instead of going straight, she turned right toward the pharmacy, even though that was not the way home. She wanted to see if the truck would follow. Maybe it was just going the same way. Maybe it would keep going straight. It turned right. Emma's breath came faster. She walked quicker, not running, not yet, but her legs wanted to. The pharmacy was ahead, lights on, people inside. She could go in there. She could ask for help. But what would she say? A truck is following me. What if they did not believe her? What if they thought she was making it up? She kept walking. The fifth block, the passenger window of the truck lowered. Just 2 inches, enough for a voice to come through. Emma. She stopped. Her name. He knew her name. Emma, honey, your mom Sarah sent me to pick you up. Emma turned, looked at the truck. The man inside leaned toward the open window. He looked normal. Clean jacket, friendly face. The kind of face that belonged to someone's dad or someone's uncle. She's working, the man said. She called me, asked me to come get you because of the early dismissal. Didn't want you walking in the rain. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. Her mom's name. He knew her mom's name. How did he know her mom's name? What's the password? Emma asked, voice small but steady. The man blinked. What? The family password. If my mom sent you, you know the password. The man smiled, but it looked different now. Tighter. Sweetheart, adults don't need passwords when they're helping. Emma's whole body went cold. Boom. That was wrong. That was the wrong answer. Her mom said even if someone says she sent them, even if they know her name, they need the password. No password, no trust. Emma ran. She did not think. She just turned and ran, her backpack slamming against her back, her shoes hitting puddles, water splashing up her legs. She heard the truck engine behind her, heard it roll slow, keeping pace, and her lungs burned, but she did not stop. She ran past houses with closed curtains, ran past parked cars, ran past a mailbox and a fire hydrant, and a dog barking behind a fence. She did not know where she was going. She just knew she had to find people. Lights, safe adults. Somewhere the man in the truck could not follow. And then she saw it. Brennan's Auto Repair. Lights on. Glass door. She could see inside. 3 men stood under the awning out of the rain drinking coffee. One of them was big, broad-shouldered, wearing a black leather vest. Biker, scary looking. The kind of man her mom might tell her to stay away from on a normal day. But this was not a normal day. Emma ran straight toward him, her feet skidding on the wet concrete, and she grabbed the sleeve of his leather vest with both hands, pulled herself behind him, like his shadow could hide her from the whole world. Jack looked down. He saw a little girl soaked to the bone, shaking eyes wide and terrified, holding onto his jacket like it was the only solid thing left in the universe. "Easy, sweetheart," Jack said, his voice low. "Careful the kind of voice you use when you do not want to scare something that is already scared." "What happened?" Emma swallowed hard, tried to make the words come out, but they stuck in her throat. She looked back toward the street, toward the navy blue truck that had stopped at the far edge of the diner across the road. The man inside leaned forward, looking at her through the rain-streaked windshield, and he smiled. Jack followed her gaze. He did not move fast, did not shout, did not do anything that would make the moment bigger or louder than it already was. He just shifted one step to the left, placing his body between Emma and the street, blocking her from view. Then he looked at the truck. Really looked. The man behind the wheel was still smiling. Not nervous, not guilty, just confident. Like this was a misunderstanding he could explain away with the right words. Jack felt something cold settle in his chest. He knew that look. He had seen it before. "What's your name?" Jack asked, keeping his eyes on the truck. "Emma," the girl whispered. "Emma what?" "Emma Cunningham, but my mom calls me Em." "Okay, Emma, my name is Jack Brennan. You're standing outside my shop and you're not in trouble." Emma's fingers loosened just a little on his sleeve, but she did not let go. Tucker set his coffee down on the windowsill, jaw tight. "Iron," he said, using the name quietly. "Want me to go ask him what he thinks he's doing?" Jack raised one hand slow, stopping him without words. "No, nobody goes near him yet." Tucker looked ready to argue, but Jack's eyes said everything his mouth did not. There was a frightened child between them and a man in a truck, and the first job was not to look tough. The first job was to keep her safe. Jack crouched down, lowering himself so Emma did not have to stare up at a giant in leather. "Where's your mom, honey?" "At the laundromat on Birch Street," Emma said, voice barely holding together. "She works the day shift. School let us out early because a pipe broke and I was supposed to wait, but I thought I could walk because it's only 6 blocks. Her voice cracked on the last word like she already decided this was her fault. Jack shook his head, slow and deliberate. "You made the best choice you could once something felt wrong. That matters." Behind him, the truck's engine idled soft under the sound of rain. The driver had not stepped out, had not left. That bothered Jack more than a loud threat would have. A guilty man sometimes ran. A confident one waited to see who would blink first. "Do you know him?" Jack asked. Emma pulled her backpack closer to her chest. "I saw him before. He came into the laundromat. He talked to my mom. She told him she was busy." Jack nodded like every word carried weight because it did. "Did he tell you to get in the truck?" Emma's eyes filled, but she held herself together. "He said my mom asked him to pick me up, but she would never do that. She has a password." Tucker's face changed. Wyatt stopped moving completely. Jack felt the cold line in his chest spread out into his arms, his hands. "What password?" Jack asked gently. "Not the word itself. Just tell me if he knew it." Emma shook her head fast. "He said adults don't need passwords when they're helping." Jack looked at Tucker. "Call 911, Shim. Tell them we have a minor who believes she was followed by an adult male in a navy blue pickup outside Brennan's Auto Repair on County Route 12. Tell them the child is safe inside the business." Tucker already had his phone out before Jack finished. Jack opened the glass door behind him, holding it wide, stepping aside so Emma could enter first. "Come on in where it's dry. We've got cameras, a landline, and too much bad coffee." The attempt at humor barely touched Emma's face, but it gave her something normal to hold on to. She stepped inside. The garage smelled like motor oil and rubber and faint cinnamon from an air freshener someone gave Jack last Christmas. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A wall clock ticked above the parts counter. Everything was ordinary, and ordinary felt like medicine. Jack pointed to a chair near the office window, far from the door, but not hidden. "You can sit there. Nobody's taking you anywhere." Emma lowered herself into the chair, shoes dripping onto the floor mat. Wyatt moved to the front window, quietly reading the truck's license plate aloud while Tucker repeated it to the dispatcher. Jack picked up the shop phone, slid it across the counter toward Emma. Do you know your mom's number? Emma nodded and recited it from memory, each digit careful like she was building a bridge, one board at a time. Jack dialed it, put the call on speaker and waited. It rang twice, then a woman answered, breathless from work and worry she did not yet understand. Sarah Cunningham speaking. Jack kept his voice even. Ma'am, this is Jack Brennan at Brennan's Auto Repair. Your daughter Emma is here with us. She's safe. For half a second, the only sound was rain tapping the windows. Then Sarah's voice came smaller, tighter, like someone squeezed all the air out of her lungs. Is there a man with a navy blue truck? Ummon looked up sharply. Jack's hand tightened around the phone. Outside across the street, the pickup's headlights blinked once through the rain, and the driver opened his door. Jack looked through the office window as the man from the pickup stepped onto the wet pavement, one hand raised like he was approaching a neighbor's porch instead of a locked business with cameras in the corners. He wore a tan work jacket, clean boots, and an expression that had probably worked on people who did not want trouble. Sarah, Jack said into the speakerphone, keeping his voice steady. Don't hang up. The police have been called. Emma is inside my shop. The doors are locked. I need you to tell me who this man is without saying anything that could put you or your daughter at risk. On the other end, Sarah took a breath that sounded like it hurt. His name is Marcus Dalton. He used to come into the laundromat. I told him several times I wasn't interested in talking outside of work. Then he started showing up near our apartment. Emma stared at the phone, her face pale beneath the damp strands of hair. Mom, I used the password rule, Emma said, her voice small but urgent. He didn't know it. Sarah made a sound that was almost a sob and almost a prayer. You did exactly right, baby. You did exactly what we practiced. Jack absorbed that like a nail driven into old wood. A mother had prepared her child for danger, and the child had listened. Now the adults had to be worthy of that courage. Outside, Marcus Dalton crossed half the parking lot before stopping beneath the edge of the awning. Rain ran down the brim of his cap. He smiled through the glass and pointed toward Emma like she was a misplaced grocery bag. Hey there, he called, voice muffled by the door. She got confused. I know her mother. Jack did not move toward the door, did not unlock it, did not invite the man closer. Tucker, Jack said quietly, tell the dispatcher the subject is at the front entrance now. Tucker repeated it word for word. Wyatt stood at the window, phone lowered but camera running, careful to keep Emma out of the frame. Jack turned to Emma again and crouched several feet away so she could see his hands, could choose whether to look at him. You're doing good. I'm going to ask you 3 things. You can answer only what you know. Emma nodded. Did your mom say Marcus could pick you up today? No. Did he know the family password? No. Did he keep following after you changed direction? Emma nodded. I crossed to the other sidewalk by the pharmacy. He turned too. Jack nodded once, not because he liked the answers, but because they were clear. That's enough for right now. Marcus knocked on the glass with 2 fingers light and polite, the kind of knock that pretended it had not frightened anyone. Come on, man. You're making this weird. Her mom knows me. Jack finally faced him fully, his reflection dark in the glass beside the man's rain-streaked smile. Then you can wait for Officer Brennan and explain it to her. The smile thinned. I'm just trying to help. So are we, Jack said, from inside a locked building with her mother on the phone and emergency services on the way. For the first time, Marcus's eyes shifted past Jack toward the security camera above the parts counter. It was a tiny movement, barely more than a flicker, but Jack saw it. Men who believed they were innocent looked at children. Men who feared evidence looked at cameras. Emma saw it too, and her small shoulders lifted with one shaky breath. The room did not feel safe because Jack was big or because bikers stood nearby. It felt safe because every adult inside had chosen patience over performance. Sarah's voice came through the phone again, trembling but stronger now. Emma, stay where you are. I'm coming with my supervisor. Don't go outside. I won't, Emma said. Then after a pause, she looked at Jack. I thought nobody would believe me because he sounded so normal. Jack's face softened in a way Tucker had rarely seen. A person can sound normal and still be wrong. That's why we listen to what happened, not just how somebody sounds. Outside, Marcus stepped back from the door, his hand dropping to his side. In the distance beneath the rain and traffic, the first faint rise of a siren moved toward County Road 12. Marcus heard it too. His polite expression disappeared, and for one brief second, Jack saw the truth under it. Not anger, not fear of bikers, but fear of being seen clearly. The siren pulled something old out of Jack, something he had spent years trying to bury. Not fear exactly, and not regret in the ordinary sense, but the kind of memory that arrived with the weight of a hand on the back of your neck. He watched Marcus Dalton stand in the rain outside the shop, no longer smiling, no longer pretending this was a misunderstanding. And for a moment, Jack was not 46 years old inside Brennan's auto repair. He was 28 again, standing in his mother's kitchen while his sister Grace tried to explain why a man from the grocery store kept appearing near their house. Jack had been tired that day, impatient, full of the careless certainty young men sometimes mistake for wisdom. He told Grace that small towns were small, that people crossed paths, that she was probably reading too much into it. He remembered the way her face had closed afterward. Not angry, just smaller, like his doubt had made the room less safe. Nothing terrible happened that night or the next, but the weeks that followed taught Jack a lesson he never forgot. Grace changed her routes. Their mother started checking windows twice. A neighbor finally reported the same man lingering near the bookstore parking lot, and only then did everyone take the pattern seriously. Jack had apologized later more than once. But apologies could not give back the first moment when his sister needed to be believed and he had chosen comfort over attention. Now inside the warm glow of the shop lights, Emma Cunningham sat wrapped in damp silence, and Jack knew life had handed him the same test in a different coat. This time he would not fail it. Outside, Marcus lifted his hand and pointed toward the phone in Jack's hand, then made a rolling motion like he was asking Jack to hurry up and stop wasting everybody's time. Jack did not answer the gesture. He stepped back from the window and looked at Wyatt. "Make sure the side door is locked." Wyatt nodded and crossed the shop without rushing. Rushing made people scared. Calm made them listen. Tucker stayed on the line with emergency services, repeating what he saw in a steady voice. Adult male outside front entrance. Navy blue pickup across from the diner. Child inside and safe. Mother contacted and on her way. Emma listened to the words like they were ropes tied around solid posts. Each detail made the floor feel a little firmer beneath her feet. Jack took a clean towel from a shelf and placed it on the edge of the counter near her. Not in her lap, not over her shoulders, giving her the choice. "Your mom's coming," he said. "Officer Brennan is close. Nobody in this room is going to ask you to go outside." Emma picked up the towel and pressed it around her hands. "He said my mom was being difficult. He said I could help make things easier if I just got in." Jack felt Tucker look at him, but he kept his eyes on Emma, soft and level. "That wasn't your job. Children aren't responsible for managing grown-up feelings." Emma blinked at that like no one had ever arranged the words in that order before. "But he knows where we live. Then the adults are going to handle that too." The answer was simple, almost plain, but it moved through the room with more strength than any threat could have. The siren grew louder, then faded slightly as a police cruiser turned off the main road. Marcus heard it clearly now. He glanced once toward his truck, once toward the shop camera, and then his expression changed again, becoming wounded, offended, rehearsed. He stepped closer to the glass just as Officer Kate Brennan pulled into the lot, blue lights washing over the rain-slick pavement. She got out with one hand raised, not reaching for anything, not escalating, just taking command by being calm. Her dark rain jacket shone under the gray daylight, and her voice carried cleanly across the parking lot. "Sir, stay where you are." Marcus turned toward her with the same polite face he had tried on Jack. "Officer, this is a misunderstanding. I know the family." Kate looked past him through the glass to where Emma sat inside. She did not wave the child out. She did not ask her to explain in front of the man who scared her. She simply nodded once, a quiet promise from one safe adult to another. Then her eyes moved to Jack, to Tucker, on the phone, to the camera above the counter, and finally back to Marcus. The rain kept falling, steady and silver, but something had shifted. Marcus was no longer standing alone with a child's word trapped under his. He was standing in front of witnesses, a mother on speakerphone, a locked business, a running camera, and a little girl who had been believed before it was too late. Officer Kate Brennan did not bring Emma outside, and Jack respected her for it before she said a single word. Too many adults thought truth had to be dragged into the open to become real, but Kate understood something Jack had learned the hard way. A scared child should not have to stand in front of the person who frightened her just to be believed. Through the rain-streaked glass, Jack watched the officer speak to Marcus Dalton in a calm, professional tone, keeping him near the front of his truck and away from the shop entrance. Marcus kept pointing toward the building, then toward his own chest, as if repeating that he was harmless might make it true. Inside, the air felt warmer now, though Emma still held the towel around her hands like it was the only thing keeping them from shaking apart. Sarah remained on speakerphone, her breathing tight and uneven, as she hurried toward the shop with her supervisor driving. "Emma," Jack said gently, staying several feet away. "Officer Brennan may need to ask you what happened, but she's going to do it in here away from him. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to tell what you remember." Emma looked at the window, then quickly looked away when Marcus turned his head. "What if I say it wrong?" Jack reached for a notepad beside the register and tore off a clean sheet. He drew 5 small lines down the page, simple as a grocery list. "Then we make it easier. Who, where, when, what happened, and how you felt. That's all. You don't need fancy words for the truth." Emma watched the pencil move, her breathing slowing with each line. "Who was Marcus Dalton?" Jack said softly. "Where was outside school then? Maple Avenue, then here. When was after early dismissal around noon? What happened was he followed you and said your mom sent him, but he didn't know the password. How you felt was scared enough to run to adults." He turned the paper toward her, but did not push it into her hands. "Does that sound right?" Emma nodded, and for the first time since she had entered the shop, she seemed to sit inside the facts instead of drowning beneath them. Wyatt stepped away from the window and spoke quietly. Camera caught her coming from the east sidewalk. Truck slowed behind her before she crossed into the lot. Jack looked at Emma. "That means the building remembers too." Her eyes lifted. "Buildings can remember. Cameras can," he said, "and sometimes that helps people tell the truth when they're tired or scared." Tucker gave the dispatcher another update, then looked toward the back of the shop as the rumble of motorcycles rolled faintly through the rain. A few more riders from Jack's circle had turned into the lot, probably looking for shelter and coffee, unaware they were arriving in the middle of something important. Jack spoke before any of them could crowd the front. "Keep it quiet. Child inside, police outside. Nobody makes this bigger than it needs to be." The men stopped at once. Leather boots, gray beards, rainwater dripping onto concrete. All of it could have looked intimidating from the street, but inside the shop they moved with careful restraint. One man closed the bay door halfway to block the wind. Another stood by the coffee machine and turned the volume down on the old radio. A third, a retired school bus driver named Frank Ellis, took one look at Emma and quietly set a wrapped granola bar on the counter, then backed away without expecting thanks. Emma stared at the bikers, confused by their silence. Jack saw the question in her face and answered it. "Loud isn't the same as strong. Sometimes strong means making room for somebody else to breathe." Outside, Officer Brennan glanced toward the arriving riders, then back at Jack through the glass. Jack gave one small nod, letting her know the room was under control. Emma pulled Jack's leather jacket from the chair beside her and wrapped it around her shoulders by choice this time. It was far too big, heavy with rain at the edges and smelling faintly of road dust and motor oil, but she tucked her chin into it as if it were a blanket from home. Then she looked at the notepad again and whispered, "Who, where, when, what happened, how I felt." Jack nodded. "That's right." At that moment, Sarah Cunningham's voice broke through the speakerphone, closer now, filled with breath and rain and a mother's fear turning into purpose. "I see the lights. I'm here." Emma stood so fast the chair legs squeaked, but Jack gently raised a hand toward the locked door. "Wait for Officer Brennan to bring her in. Safe steps one at a time." Emma froze, then nodded. Outside, Sarah came running across the lot in a blue laundromat apron, her supervisor holding an umbrella over both of them. Marcus turned his head toward her, and for 1 second his face changed again, as if the story he had prepared no longer fit the room he had walked into. Sarah did not go to him. She went straight to Officer Brennan, pointed to the shop, and said something Jack could not hear through the glass. But he did not need to hear it. A moment later, the officer opened the door herself, and Emma moved forward under the oversized leather jacket, not as a lost child anymore, but as a little girl walking toward the mother who had taught her how to survive. Sarah reached Emma just inside the doorway, and the sound she made was not loud, but it seemed to pull every heart in the garage toward them. She dropped to her knees on the rubber floor mat, rain dripping from her hair and blue apron, and opened her arms only after Emma stepped forward first. Then the little girl folded into her mother so completely that Jack had to look away for a second. Some moments were too private for a room full of strangers, even when those strangers had helped make the moment possible. Officer Brennan closed the door behind them and stood near the entrance, creating a quiet barrier between the family and the rain-soaked parking lot. Outside, Marcus Dalton was speaking faster now, his hands moving in small, frustrated circles as another patrol car turned into the lot. The blue lights washed over the wet pavement, over the diner windows, over the row of motorcycles that had gathered without meaning to become part of the story. The newer riders stood beneath the awning in silence, boots planted, shoulders square, not surrounding anyone, not showing off, simply refusing to let confusion take over. Marcus looked at them and tried to use their presence as a weapon. "See," he called toward Officer Brennan, his voice carrying through the rain. "This is what I mean. You're going to believe them over me. A bunch of bikers." Jack heard it through the glass, and so did Emma. Her face tightened against Sarah's shoulder. Before any rider could answer, Jack opened the inner office door and stepped into the main shop, his voice low but firm. Nobody responds to that. Nobody gives him a reaction. Tucker's jaw flexed, but he nodded. Wyatt lowered his phone slightly, still recording the public scene outside but keeping the child out of view. Frank Ellis moved another chair near Sarah without saying a word, then returned to the coffee counter. Officer Brennan glanced back at Jack, and there was a brief understanding between them. Calm was doing more work than anger ever could. She guided Sarah and Emma toward the office, away from the front windows. "Mrs. Cunningham, I'm going to speak with you and Emma in a minute, but first I want you both to take a breath. She's safe, you're here. We're going to handle one step at a time." Sarah nodded, wiping rain and tears from her face with the same trembling hand. "I reported him before, twice. He never touched us. He never said enough in front of anyone. People kept telling me maybe he was lonely. Maybe I misunderstood." Emma pulled back just enough to look at her mother. "I didn't misunderstand today." Sarah held her tighter. "No, baby, you didn't." The words seemed to steady the room. Jack had seen engines come apart from one loose bolt. Families come apart from one ignored warning. People come apart because nobody believed the first small sentence. Now he watched a mother choose belief without hesitation, and it felt like a repair beginning in real time. Outside, Marcus took a step toward the side of his truck. Not running, not yet, but shifting his weight like a man searching for an exit. One of the riders near the awning, a former delivery driver named Paul Reeves, quietly read the plate number again and pointed toward the security camera mounted above the garage bay. "North camera has the truck from the street. South camera has the sidewalk." Jack nodded. "Tell Officer Brennan, not the crowd." Paul did exactly that, walking slowly, hands visible, speaking from a respectful distance. It was the kind of discipline nobody expected from men in soaked leather with old road names stitched to their vests. That was what made the moment powerful. They were not there to frighten Marcus. They were there to make sure Emma did not have to be brave alone anymore. Officer Brennan returned to the front, listened to Paul, then looked at the cameras, the phones, the witnesses, the mother, the child. Marcus tried one more time, smoothing his face into concern. "I was only trying to help." She looked lost. Jack finally spoke from inside the open shop door. Not loud, not threatening, just clear enough for the rain to carry it. "Then you should have called the police, not asked her to get in your truck." Marcus's mouth opened, but no answer came. For the first time all day, his normal voice could not cover the shape of what he had done. The second patrol car stopped behind his pickup, blocking nothing dramatically, simply making it clear that leaving would now require permission. Emma watched from the office doorway under Jack's oversized jacket, her small hand wrapped in Sarah's. Officer Brennan stepped into the office with a small recorder in one hand and a patience in her face that made the room feel less like a police station and more like a place where a child could breathe. She did not stand over Emma. She pulled a chair near the corner, sat low, and placed the recorder on the desk where everyone could see it. "Emma," she said, "I'm going to ask a few questions. Your mom can stay right beside you. Mr. Brennan can stay near the door if that helps, but nobody is going to answer for you. Your words matter." Emma looked at Jack, then at Sarah, then down at the oversized leather jacket wrapped around her shoulders. "Can he stay?" Jack waited for Sarah's nod before moving one step closer, careful to remain by the wall, not between mother and daughter, not inside the center of the moment. Officer Brennan began with easy things. Emma's full name, her age, the name of her school, what time dismissal happened. Emma's voice shook at first, but the notepad on the desk helped. Who, where, when, what happened, how I felt. She touched each line with one finger as she spoke. I was outside school after the pipe broke. I walked toward Maple Avenue. The blue truck went slow behind me. I crossed near the pharmacy. It turned two. He said my mom wanted him to pick me up, but he didn't know the password. He said grown-ups don't need passwords. I got scared, so I ran to the garage because there were people and lights. Sarah closed her eyes and tears slipped down her cheeks, but she did not interrupt. That mattered. Emma needed to hear herself finish. Officer Brennan nodded, not with surprise, but with respect. You did the right thing, every step. Outside, the rain had softened from a hard drumming to a steady whisper, and the sound of radios moved through the front of the shop as another officer reviewed the security footage with Wyatt. The cameras had caught more than anyone expected. Marcus's truck first appeared on the east camera at 12:07, moving slowly behind Emma. At 12:09, she crossed to the other side of the street. The truck turned at the next corner and appeared again. At 12:11, Emma broke into a run. At 12:12, she reached Jack beneath the awning. The building remembered clearly. So did the diner. Diane Miller, the owner, came across under a yellow raincoat and told Officer Brennan her own outside camera had caught Marcus parking across the road and waiting with his engine running. Bit by bit, the story stopped being one frightened child against one confident adult. It became a pattern with timestamps, witnesses, license plates, and a mother who had warned before anyone wanted to listen. Marcus saw the shift happening from beside his truck. His shoulders dropped first, then his voice changed. The offended neighbor routine faded, and something restless took its place. When Officer Brennan stepped back outside to speak with him again, he glanced toward the open street beyond the second patrol car measuring distance, rain timing. Jack saw it from the shop window. So did Officer Brennan. Mr. Dalton, she said calm as ever, we're not finished here. Marcus gave a quick laugh that did not sound natural. I don't have to stand in the rain for this nonsense. He took 2 fast steps toward the driver's door. No one shouted, no biker charged forward. Officer Brennan simply spoke into her shoulder radio, and the officer near the second cruiser moved to the front of the truck. Paul Reeves read the plate number aloud again, though everyone already had it. Marcus stopped with his hand inches from the door handle, suddenly aware that every exit he thought he had was now covered by procedure, not force. That was the real turn. The rain, the cameras, the witnesses, the calm voices, the little girl's careful words, all of it had become stronger than fear. Emma watched from inside the office, pressed close to Sarah. Is he leaving? Jack looked at the scene outside, then back at her, not without answering some questions. Officer Brennan guided Marcus away from the truck and toward the covered side of the diner, where another officer waited. No drama, no spectacle, just the quiet weight of accountability settling over a man who had counted on silence. Sarah kissed the top of Emma's head, her hand trembling in her daughter's wet hair. You remembered the password rule, you ran to people, you stayed where there were lights. Emma leaned into her. I thought my legs were going to stop. Jack's throat tightened, but his voice stayed steady. Courage isn't legs that never shake. Courage is running anyway when something inside you knows you should. Emma looked at him for a long second, then down at the leather jacket around her shoulders. Outside, the blue lights kept turning in the rain, but inside the shop, the storm had lost its power. Officer Brennan did not make Emma repeat the story more than she needed to. Once was enough for the child. The rest belonged to the adults, the cameras, the timestamps, the patrol radios, and the careful notes being taken beneath the gray afternoon rain. Marcus Dalton stood under the edge of the diner awning, now no longer near his truck, no longer close to the shop door, no longer able to turn his clean jacket and calm voice into a shield. His words still moved quickly, but they had nowhere useful to land. Every time he tried to sound helpful, the facts answered for Emma. The school had released students early. Sarah had not sent anyone to pick her up. Marcus did not know the family password. The truck had followed the same turns Emma described. The camera at Brennan's auto repair had seen it. The diner camera had seen it. Diane Miller had seen enough to come outside in the rain with her yellow coat zipped to her chin and tell the officer that child was running like she meant it. Inside the office, Emma sat between Sarah and the wall, still wearing Jack's jacket like a tent made of black leather. The sleeves covered her hands. The collar nearly touched her chin. It should have made her look smaller, but somehow it did the opposite. She looked protected. She looked believed. Jack stood near the doorway with his arms folded loosely, careful not to crowd the room. He had spent most of his life being judged by the patch on his back, the scars on his hands, the low thunder of motorcycles arriving before people saw the men riding them. He knew what it meant to be misunderstood, but he also knew this was not about him, and that mattered more than anything. This was about a girl learning that her fear deserved respect before it became proof. Officer Brennan came back in after speaking with the other officers, rain shining on her shoulders. She looked first at Sarah. "We're going to document everything, including your earlier reports. I also want to give you information about a protective order and victim services. You're not alone in this." Sarah nodded, exhausted but upright, one arm wrapped around Emma. "I kept thinking I had to wait until something worse happened." Officer Brennan shook her head gently. "Patterns matter. Fear matters. A child saying no matters." Those words settled into the room like sunlight through clouds. Emma looked up. "So he was allowed to run," Jack answered before he could stop himself, his voice rough but kind. "You were allowed to run the second your stomach told you something was wrong." Officer Brennan nodded. "And you were allowed to ask strangers for help because you chose a public place and open business and adults who could call your mother in emergency services. That was smart." Emma looked down at her wet sneakers. "I thought I was being rude." Sarah pressed a kiss into her hair. "Being safe is never rude." Outside, the riders remained under the awning, and beside the half-closed garage bay, quiet as fence posts in the rain. No one celebrated. No one acted like heroes. Frank poured coffee for Diane. Paul gave Officer Brennan the camera file on a flash drive. Tucker helped move a delivery truck so Sarah's supervisor could pull closer to the door. Small things, human things, the kind of things a town remembered long after the flashing lights were gone. When Officer Brennan asked Emma if she wanted to add anything else, the child took a long breath. Her voice was still thin, but it no longer broke. "I want people to know that when kids say someone is scaring them, they might not have all the right words yet." The office went completely still. Jack felt the sentence hit him in a place older than the day, older than the rain, older than the shop. He thought of Grace in their mother's kitchen and wished somebody had said those words back then. Officer Brennan wrote it down carefully. Sarah covered her mouth not to hide from the truth, but to hold herself together while her daughter spoke it. Emma slipped one arm out of Jack's jacket and reached into the pocket where her fingers found an old receipt in the stub of a carpenter's pencil. She turned the notepad toward herself, wrote slowly, then folded the paper once. When Jack stepped closer to take the jacket back, she handed him the note first. The letters were uneven, the pencil marks dark from pressure. "Thank you for believing me." Jack looked at the note for a long moment, then tucked it into the inside pocket of his vest like it weighed more than gold. "Thank you for telling the truth," he said. And outside, as Marcus Dalton was guided toward the patrol car for further questioning, the men people had feared all morning stood in the rain and made a path wide enough for a mother and daughter to walk through without lowering their eyes. The morning after Marcus was questioned, Sarah could not stop checking the locks. Emma slept fitfully, waking twice from dreams where the truck never stopped following. Officer Kate called at 8 a.m. with an update that felt like cold water. "We don't have enough to hold him," Kate said carefully. "He's being released this afternoon." Sarah's hand tightened on the phone. "But the cameras, the witnesses, Emma's statement." "I know, and we're using all of it to build the case. But right now what we have shows following not attempted abduction. His lawyer is arguing he was concerned trying to help. It's not enough for the DA to file charges yet. So he just walks away. For now, but Sarah, I'm not done. I've started looking into his background. And I want you to know the restraining order hearing is Friday. We're going to make sure you and Emma are protected." After they hung up, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, staring at the yellow wall where the password reminder hung. Bluebird. Such a small word to carry so much weight. Emma appeared in the doorway, hair tangled from sleep eyes still heavy. "Is he coming back?" Sarah pulled her daughter onto her lap, even though Emma was getting too big for it. "No, baby. We're getting a court order that says he can't come near us. And if he does, he goes to jail." "But what if he doesn't care about the order?" Sarah did not have a good answer for that, so she just held Emma tighter and said, "Then we tell Officer Kate, and we keep using our password, and we stay smart. That afternoon, Marcus Dalton walked out of the Riverside police station wearing the same tan jacket, the same clean boots, the same expression that said he had done nothing wrong. He drove his navy blue pickup to the library, returned 3 books on time, smiled at the librarian. He stopped at the grocery store, bought milk and bread, made small talk with the cashier about the rain. He did not drive past the Cunningham apartment, did not park near the laundromat, did not do a single thing that would violate the informal warning Officer Brennan had given him. But that night, Sarah saw a blue truck parked 3 blocks from their building. Different make, different year. Probably not even him. She checked the locks twice anyway. 2 days later, the story began spreading through Riverside in the way small towns pass information. Not through news reports or official statements, but through conversations at the diner, at church, at the pharmacy, where Emma had almost stopped for help. "Did you hear about the Cunningham girl?" one woman said over coffee. "Ran straight to those bikers at Brennan's garage," another replied. "Can you imagine? Poor thing must have been terrified." "Well, they kept her safe, didn't they? Maybe we've been wrong about them all along." But not everyone saw it that way. At the auto parts store, a man named Ronald Webb told his buddies, "I don't care what they did. Bikers are bikers. They don't belong near schools and kids." At the town hall, a councilwoman named Diane Porter received 3 emails suggesting that Brennan's auto repairs should be subject to new zoning restrictions. And at the high school, Principal Margaret Sutherland got a phone call from a concerned parent asking if it was appropriate for gang members to be considered heroes. Margaret's response was short. "They're not gang members. They're community members who helped a child in danger. And if more people acted like them, we'd have fewer children in danger." She hung up before the parent could argue. By Thursday, Officer Kate had made progress. She pulled Marcus Dalton's records from Salem, a city 2 hours north. 5 years ago, a woman named Lisa Walsh had filed for a restraining order. The complaint described a pattern eerily similar to what Sarah had reported. Kate called Lisa. The woman answered on the 3rd ring, her voice cautious. "This is Lisa Walsh." "Ms. Walsh, my name is Officer Kate Brennan with Riverside PD. I'm calling about Marcus Dalton." There was a long silence. Then quietly, "What did he do?" Kate explained. "The laundromat visits. The following. Emma running through the rain." Lisa listened without interrupting, and when Kate finished, the woman's voice was shaking. "I moved to Eugene to get away from him. Changed my phone number. Didn't date for 2 years because I was so scared I'd attract another one." "Would you be willing to talk to our district attorney?" Kate asked. "Your case helps establish a pattern." Another silence, then, "Yes, if it stops him from doing this to someone else, yes." Friday morning, Sarah and Emma stood in a small courtroom that smelled like floor polish and old paper. A judge reviewed Officer Brennan's affidavit, the camera footage, Emma's statement, and Sarah's 2 prior reports. Marcus's lawyer argued that his client had made an error in judgment, that he genuinely believed he was helping, that there was no evidence of malicious intent. The judge looked at Emma sitting beside her mother in a yellow dress Sarah had ironed that morning. Then she looked at Marcus, who sat with his hands folded on the table, picture of calm. "Mr. Dalton," the judge said, "I'm issuing a temporary restraining order. You are to stay 500 feet away from Sarah Cunningham and Emma Cunningham at all times. No contact, direct or indirect. Violation will result in immediate arrest. We'll have a full hearing in 30 days to determine if this should be made permanent." Marcus's lawyer nodded like it was all very reasonable. Marcus himself showed no reaction. But when Sarah and Emma walked out of the courthouse, Emma's hand in hers, Sarah felt like she could breathe for the first time in 3 days. That same afternoon, Jack got a call he did not expect. "Mr. Brennan, this is Margaret Sutherland, principal at Riverside Elementary. I'm hoping you and some of your friends might be willing to speak at a school assembly next week." Jack was quiet for a moment. "Ma'am, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Some folks in town aren't too happy about us being near the school as it is." "Those folks don't get to decide what's good for my students," Margaret said firmly. "Emma wants to talk about what happened, about the password rule, about finding safe adults, about being brave. And she specifically asked if you could be there." Jack looked at the note Emma had written him, still folded in his vest pocket. "If Sarah's okay with it, then yes." Sarah suggested it. The assembly was scheduled for Friday, 1 week from the day Emma had run through the rain. Sarah took Emma to the police station again on Monday, not for more questions, but because Kate had news. We found something in Marcus's truck, Kate said, sliding a photograph across the desk. It showed a spiral notebook open to a page filled with handwriting. Sarah leaned closer. Her stomach dropped. September 12th, Sarah starts 6 a.m. shift. September 19th, Emma walks to school alone Fridays. September 26th, apartment window visible from Maple Street parking. There were more entries, dates, Timayan, observations about their routines written in neat block letters. This wasn't impulse, Kate said quietly. This was planning. Emma stared at the photograph, her face pale. He was watching us for that long. Yes, Kate said, and that changes everything. The DA is filing charges, stalking multiple counts, criminal harassment. This goes beyond what happened last week. Sarah put her arm around Emma, pulling her close. When arraignment is Wednesday, I'll let you know what happens. Wednesday came. Marcus Dalton stood in front of a different judge this time with bail set at $20,000. He posted it within an hour using money from an account his lawyer said came from family resources. He walked out of the courthouse at 3 p.m., got in his truck, and drove home to his apartment on the east side of town. Officer Kate was waiting in her cruiser across the street. She did not approach him, did not say anything, just sat there visible, a quiet reminder that he was being watched now. Marcus saw her. Their eyes met for a brief second. Then he went inside. By Thursday, the town was split in ways that made old fault lines visible. At the diner, Diane Miller put up a handwritten sign. We believe Emma Cunningham. We believe Sarah Cunningham. We believe women and children when they say they're scared. 3 regulars stopped coming in. 7 new customers started. At the library, the volunteer coordinator quietly removed Marcus's name from the reading program despite protests from 2 board members who said he had not been convicted of anything. And at Brennan's auto repair, someone spray-painted criminals across the bay door in red letters. Jack found it when he opened Friday morning. He stared at it for a long moment, then got a bucket and scrub brush and started cleaning. Tucker showed up with more supplies. Wyatt brought primer and paint. By noon, the door was clean. By 2, it was repainted. By 3, someone had left a bouquet of flowers on the doorstep with a note that said, "Thank you for protecting our children." Jack did not know who left it. He kept the note anyway. Friday afternoon, the gymnasium at Riverside Elementary filled with students, teachers, and parents. Folding chairs lined the polished floor. The principal had framed it as a community safety day, keeping it broad age appropriate. Emma sat in the front row between Sarah and Principal Sutherland wearing jeans and a yellow sweater. She looked small, but she did not look scared. Jack stood near the basketball hoop in a clean shirt, in the same worn vest, more nervous than he had felt in years. Tucker and Wyatt flanked him, equally uncomfortable with the attention. Diane Miller sat in the 3rd row, yellow raincoat folded in her lap. Officer Kate stood near the door in uniform. Principal Sutherland spoke first about safety, trusted adults listening to children. Officer Brennan spoke about what to do if you feel unsafe, where to go, who to call. Then it was Emma's turn. She walked to the microphone, slowly holding a piece of paper. Principal Sutherland adjusted the microphone lower. Emma looked out at the faces, took a breath, and began. My name is Emma Cunningham. I'm 8 years old. A few weeks ago, something scary happened to me, but I'm okay now because I remembered what my mom taught me. The gym went quiet. My mom and I have a password, Emma continued. Every month, we pick a word that only we know. If someone says my mom sent them to pick me up, I ask for the password. If they don't know it, I don't go with them, even if they seem nice, even if they know my name. She glanced at her notes, then back up. A man said my mom sent him, but he didn't know the password. He said adults don't need passwords. That's when I knew something was wrong. A few parents shifted in their seats. Some kids leaned forward. I ran to a place with lights and people and cameras. I ran to adults who could help, and they believed me right away. They didn't say I was being silly. They didn't say I was wrong. They just helped. Emma's voice grew stronger. I want other kids to know that if something feels wrong, it probably is. You don't have to wait until you have all the right words. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to tell someone and keep telling until someone listens. She looked at Jack for just a second, something passing between them that needed no words. And sometimes, Emma said softly, the people who help you might not look like you expect, but that's okay. Safe people come in all kinds of jackets. The applause started slow, then built until it filled the gym. Parents stood, teachers wiped their eyes, kids clapped until their hands hurt. Emma walked back to her seat. Sarah pulled her close, whispering something only her daughter could hear. After the assembly, Principal Sutherland approached Jack with an idea. "We want to start a program," she said. "Safe stop locations. Businesses around town where kids know they can go if they need help. We'd train staff, put stickers in windows, create a network." Jack listened skeptical. "And you want the garage to be one of them?" "I want it to be the first one because that's where it started." Jack looked at Tucker at Wyatt. "We're not social workers." "No," Margaret agreed, "but you're people who showed up when it mattered. That's what we need." 2 weeks later, Brennan's Auto Repair became the first official safe stop location in Riverside, Oregon. The sticker went in the front window, bright blue, with a small bird in the corner, and the words, "Safe Stop, you are believed here." Diane's Diner got one next. Then the pharmacy on Maple Avenue. Then the library, despite the board members who grumbled about taking sides. By the end of the month, 12 businesses had signed on. By December, 3 neighboring towns had started their own programs. Emma went back to school, back to normal routines. But normal looked different now. She held her head higher, spoke up more in class, made eye contact with adults. Dr. Evelyn Parker, the psychologist, Sarah found met with Emma weekly. They talked about fear, about safety, about nightmares that came less often but still came sometimes. "You did everything right," Dr. Parker said during one session, "but sometimes our bodies remember fear even after our minds know we're safe." Emma nodded. She understood more than an 8-year-old should have to. The restraining order became permanent in October. Marcus did not contest it. His lawyer advised compliance cooperation, a low profile until trial. Marcus stayed away, at least visibly, but Sarah still checked over her shoulder, still locked doors twice, still kept her phone charged and close. In November, the district attorney added a charge after Officer Cates' deeper investigation revealed something new. Marcus had a second notebook at his apartment. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Sarah at work, Sarah and Emma at the grocery store, Sarah walking Emma to school, all taken from a distance, all without their knowledge. The DA called it criminal surveillance, added it to the stalking charges, told Sarah the trial was set for March. 5 months felt like forever. In December, something unexpected happened. Sarah got a call from a woman named Lisa Walsh. "I saw the news story about your daughter," Lisa said, "about the Safe Stop program. I wanted you to know that what he did to you, he did to me too, 5 years ago, and I ran. I let him win." Sarah gripped the phone. "You survived. That's not letting him win." "Maybe, but I could have stopped him. If I'd fought harder, testified, made sure people knew what he was, maybe he wouldn't have found you." "This isn't on you," Sarah said firmly. "This is on him, only him." They talked for an hour. By the end, Lisa had agreed to testify when the trial came. Not because she blamed herself, but because she refused to let him disappear into another town, another life, another victim. Sarah hung up feeling less alone than she had in months. Christmas came. Emma asked for one thing, a charm for the leather bracelet Jack had given her for her 9th birthday in November. She wanted a tiny bluebird to match the password that had saved her. Sarah found one at a jewelry store 2 towns over. On Christmas morning, Emma put it on the bracelet and did not take it off. Jack spent Christmas alone like he did most years, but this year he got a card in the mail. Inside was a drawing from Emma, the same one she had given him before, now reproduced and framed properly. And a note from Sarah. "You gave us a place to run to. Thank you for keeping the door open." Jack put it on the wall beside the parts counter next to the photo of Grace. In January, the town council held a ceremony recognizing the first 12 Safe Stop locations. Jack stood on a small stage with Diane the pharmacist, the librarian feeling out of place in the fluorescent lights. Principal Sutherland gave a speech. Officer Kate gave another. And then Emma walked to the microphone unannounced, unplanned. "People ask me if I'm still scared sometimes," she said, her voice clear now, practiced from weeks of speaking to classes and parent groups. "I am. But I also know that when I'm scared, there are places I can run to, and people who will believe me. That makes all the difference." The room stood. The applause lasted until Jack had to wipe his eyes and pretend it was the lights. February brought rain again, the kind that reminded everyone of that September day. Sarah watched it from the laundromat window, folding towels, and did not feel the same panic she used to. Emma walked to school now, but never alone. Some days Sarah walked with her. Other days a neighbor did. On Fridays, Jack drove past in his truck, just checking a quiet shadow that meant safety. In mid-February, Lisa Walsh drove to Riverside to meet Sarah and Emma face to face. They met at a coffee shop downtown, the kind of meeting that carried weight neither woman quite knew how to handle. "I'm sorry this happened to you," Lisa said, hands wrapped around tea she was not drinking. "I'm sorry it took so long for anyone to listen." Sarah shook her head. "You have nothing to apologize for. I should have fought harder 5 years ago when it happened to me. I just moved away." Emma, sitting beside her mother, spoke up. "Did he follow you too?" Lisa nodded. "Yes, for about 4 months. He'd show up at the hospital where I worked, at the coffee shop I went to every morning. He never threatened me out loud, but I felt unsafe all the time." "Did you tell people?" "I did, but back then nobody took it seriously until something bad happened, and I didn't want to wait for something bad." Emma nodded like she understood. "Me neither. That's why I ran." Lisa's eyes filled. "You were so brave." "My mom taught me," Emma said simply. 3 weeks before the trial, Sarah got a late-night phone call that made her blood run cold. It was Officer Kate, her voice tight. "Sarah, I need you to stay calm. Marcus violated the restraining order. He was parked on your street tonight. A neighbor called it in. We arrested him 20 minutes ago." Sarah sat down hard on the kitchen floor. "Was he watching the apartment?" "We don't know yet, but he's in custody now and bail's been revoked. He won't be getting out before trial." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." After they hung up, Sarah went to Emma's room. Her daughter was asleep, one arm hanging off the bed, face peaceful. Sarah sat on the floor beside her, back against the wall, and let herself cry. Not from fear this time, from relief. The trial began on a cold Monday in March. Sarah testified on the first day, walking the jury through months of escalating behavior. The grocery store encounters, the apartment drive-bys, the 2 police reports that had gone nowhere. "I knew something was wrong," Sarah said from the witness stand, "but every time I tried to tell someone, I was told I was overreacting. That maybe he was just lonely, that I should be flattered." "How did that make you feel?" the prosecutor asked. "Like I was going crazy. Like maybe I was wrong until he followed my daughter." Lisa Walsh testified on the second day. But before she spoke, the prosecutor introduced evidence. Hospital security logs showing Marcus entering the building 17 times over 3 months, always during Lisa's shift. Coffee shop receipts time-stamped within minutes of Lisa's usual arrival. A restraining order that had expired after 6 months. "He waited," Lisa said, her voice steady. "He waited until the order expired, then moved to a new town. Started over. I thought I was safe because he stopped. I didn't realize he just found someone else." Officer Kate testified about the evidence. The notebooks, the photographs, the camera footage from the garage and the diner. The timeline showing Marcus had tracked Sarah and Emma's routines for at least 2 months before approaching Emma. Emma did not have to testify in person. Her statement was played on video, recorded in a child-friendly room with Sarah beside her. The jury watched an 8-year-old girl explain the password rule, describe the truck following her, recount the moment she realized something was wrong. When the video ended, the courtroom was silent. Marcus's lawyer tried. He argued misunderstanding, loneliness, social awkwardness. He painted Marcus as a man who made poor choices but had no criminal intent. He pointed out that Marcus never touched Emma, never directly threatened anyone, never did anything overtly violent. The prosecutor's closing argument was short. He didn't have to touch her. He terrified her. He stalked her mother for months. He planned, he documented, he waited for his moment. And when an 8-year-old girl was walking home alone in the rain, he saw an opportunity. The only reason this isn't worse is because Emma Cunningham was smart enough and brave enough to run. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous on all counts. Guilty of stalking, guilty of criminal harassment, guilty of attempted child abduction, guilty of criminal surveillance. Marcus Dalton was sentenced to 5 years for stalking, 3 years for harassment, and 2 years for surveillance, all to run concurrently. With good behavior, he would serve 4 years minimum. A permanent restraining order was issued extending 1,000 feet and remaining in effect even after his release. When Officer Kate called Sarah with the news, Sarah sat down on the kitchen floor and cried so hard she could not breathe. Emma sat beside her, holding her mother's hand, saying nothing, just being there. "It's over," Sarah said when she could finally speak. Emma leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "Not over, just safe now." 2 weeks after sentencing, Officer Kate visited Marcus at the state prison, not to gloat, to deliver a message. She sat across from him in the visitation room, separated by thick glass. Marcus looked smaller in the orange jumpsuit, less confident, without the clean jacket and friendly smile. "Lisa Walsh wants you to know she's getting married next month," Kate said through the phone. Sarah Cunningham got promoted at the laundromat. Emma's teaching other kids the password rule in schools across 3 counties. Marcus stared, his face blank. "They won," Kate said. "You didn't break them. You made them stronger." She hung up the phone and walked out without waiting for a response. Spring came to Riverside with rain that smelled like new grass and hope. Emma walked to school most days now, usually with her mother or a neighbor, but sometimes on bright mornings she walked alone for a block or two, testing her courage in small doses. The nightmares came maybe once a month. When they did, Sarah would sit on the edge of Emma's bed and remind her, "You're safe, he's in prison. The world has more helpers than hunters." "But what if there are more people like him?" Emma asked one night. "There are," Sarah said honestly, "but there are more people like Mr. Brennan, more people like Officer Kate, more people who will believe you the first time." Emma thought about that, then nodded. "Okay." 1 year after Emma ran through the rain, Brennan's Auto Repair held a small gathering. Not a celebration exactly, more like a recognition that something had changed and would not change back. The safe stop locations brought food. Diane brought pies. The librarian brought cookies. Officer Kate came in uniform. Lisa Walsh drove 2 hours from Eugene just to be there. They stood in the garage, surrounded by tools and oil stains and the faint smell of cinnamon air freshener. 22 safe stop locations now operated across Riverside. Programs had launched in 8 towns across Oregon. Principals from 3 states had called asking how to implement it in their schools. It had started with one 8-year-old girl and a password she remembered. Emma and Sarah arrived together, both wearing jeans, both smiling in the way people smile when they have survived something together. Emma walked over to Jack, who was trying to hide behind a cup of coffee near the workbench. "Hi, Mr. Brennan." "Hi, Emma. How's 3rd grade?" "Good. We're learning about heroes in history class. I told my teacher that heroes don't always look like you expect." Jack smiled. "What did your teacher say?" "She said I was right." Emma reached into her backpack and pulled out a small package wrapped in newspaper. "I made you something." Jack unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a drawing matted and framed in wood Emma had clearly painted herself. It showed a garage in the rain, a little girl running a man in a black jacket standing like a wall between her and the storm. At the top, in careful letters, "The day I learned brave people come in all jackets." Jack stared at it, unable to speak. "I wanted you to have it," Emma said, "because you kept the note." Jack pulled the folded paper from his vest pocket, edges soft from being carried everywhere for a year. "Thank you for believing me." "Yeah," he said quietly. "I still carry it." Emma smiled, then looked at the safe stop sticker in the window. "How many kids have come here now?" 11, Jack said. "All safe, all believed." Emma's smile grew. "Good." She hugged him quick and ran back to her mother. Jack hung the drawing on the wall beside the parts counter, right next to the photo of Grace. 2 moments, 2 chances, 1 failure, 1 success. Grace called that evening. She had seen the news story about the trial, about the Safe Stop program spreading across the state. "You did good, big brother." "Emma did good. I just didn't screw it up." "You gave her what you couldn't give me back then," Grace said gently. "Immediate belief, no questions, no doubt. That matters more than you know." Jack's chest tightened. "I'm sorry I didn't do it for you." "I know, and I forgave you a long time ago, but Jack, you need to forgive yourself." After they hung up, Jack sat in the dark office looking at Emma's drawing, at the note she had written, at the photo of Grace that had lived on his wall for 18 years. Maybe Grace was right. Maybe it was time to forgive himself for being young and stupid and wrong. Maybe saving one little girl did not erase failing his sister, but maybe it was enough to start letting go. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to Grace. "Come visit soon. There's someone I'd like you to meet." Grace responded immediately. "Emma? Yeah, I'd love to." In May, the Riverside Town Council officially recognized the Safe Stop program as a community safety initiative and allocated funding to expand it. Businesses across the county began signing up. Churches, community centers, even the post office. Sarah was asked to speak at a conference in Portland about family safety planning. She brought Emma, who sat in the front row and watched her mother tell 300 people about the power of a single password. Afterward, a dozen women approached Sarah, each with her own story of being followed, doubted, dismissed, each saying thank you for speaking up, for fighting, for making people listen. Sarah hugged strangers and cried in a hotel bathroom and called Jack from the parking lot. "I didn't know there were so many of us," she said. "There always were," Jack replied. "They just didn't have a reason to come forward before." In June, Emma turned 9.5, which she insisted was an important birthday, even though Sarah said it was not technically a birthday at all. They had a small party. Emma invited 5 friends from school, all of whom now knew the password rule, all of whom had learned about safe stops in assembly. Jack came with a gift, a tiny silver whistle on a chain. "Just in case you ever need to be loud," he said. Emma put it on immediately. By September, 1 year exactly from the day Emma ran through the rain, the Safe Stop program had expanded to 5 states. A documentary filmmaker reached out asking to tell the story. A children's book author wanted to write about the password rule. Sarah said no to both. This was not about fame or attention. This was about Emma getting to be a kid again, about walking to school without fear, about sleeping through the night without nightmares, about knowing that when she was scared, there were places she could run to and people who would believe her. On the anniversary of that September day, Sarah and Emma drove to Brennan's Auto Repair. The rain fell light, just a mist, nothing like the downpour a year ago. Jack was outside working on a motorcycle when they arrived. He looked up, wiped grease on a rag, and walked over. "Thought you might come by today," he said. "We wanted to say thank you," Sarah replied. Again, still. Jack shook his head. "You don't need to keep thanking me." "Yes, we do," Emma said. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, new this time, the creases still sharp. Jack opened it carefully. "1 year ago, you taught me that being believed matters more than being perfect. Thank you for keeping the door open. Thank you for staying." "Love, Emma." Jack folded it slowly and put it in his vest pocket right beside the first note both of them carried together now. "You taught me something too," Jack said. "You taught me that it's never too late to get it right." Emma looked confused. "Get what right?" "Listening, believing, showing up when it matters." Emma smiled, then looked at the Safe Stop sticker still bright in the window. Behind it, through the glass, she could see the drawing she had made hanging on the wall. The garage looked the same as it had a year ago. Same tools, same oil stains, same worn concrete and buzzing lights. But it felt different now. It felt like what it had become. A place where a scared child could run and find safety. A place where being believed was not a question, but a promise. Emma waved goodbye and got back in the car with Sarah. They drove away into the September rain, mother and daughter survivors and teachers moving through the world a little differently than they had a year ago. Jack watched them go, then walked back inside. The rain kept falling, the tools still waited. The note from Emma still rested against his heart. And in the window, the Safe Stop sticker caught the gray light and held it, a small blue bird, promising sanctuary to anyone who needed it. Because some promises were worth keeping, and some doors were worth holding open, even in the rain.